Hello, and thank you for joining me as I reflect today on our lectionary readings for this, the third Sunday of Easter. And if you haven't already done so, then you might like to glance through the readings from Acts and from John's Gospel before you listen further. But I'll begin with words from the other reading from Revelation. To the one seated on the throne and to the Lamb be blessing and honour and glory and might for ever and ever. Amen. I'm going fishing. So says Peter at the start of today's Gospel reading. And it's hard for me not to sense the frustration in his voice. We will go with you, is the delightfully direct reply from the other 6 disciples. But the sense of frustration remains as they get into the boat and go out onto the Sea of Tiberias, but catch nothing all night. And if you chose, as I think we have in most of our churches today, to read the shorter form of that passage from Acts, you're left with Saul in suspense, waiting for something to happen. Get up and enter the city, and you will be told what you are to do. And it's much the same for the disciples. After the 2 appearances in the upper room, Jesus tells them to go back to Galilee, to wait for him there. And they wait. John doesn't tell us how long they wait. Chapter 21 comes almost like an afterthought to an already complete narrative. Clearly the wait has been longer than they expected, longer than they thought reasonable. So they go back to the thing that they know best. They fish. Or perhaps the motive is even more basic. They're running short of money. They need a catch to sell. Perhaps they simply need food to feed their own hunger, theirs and their families. And I think that's a motivation which a depressingly large number of families will recognise at the moment. And maybe doubt has begun to creep into their minds. Why has Jesus not come? Has something gone wrong? Did they imagine those appearances in the upper room? Did they misunderstand the instruction to return to Galilee? And just as dawn is breaking and their spirits are at the lowest, they see a figure on the shore, a figure they do not recognise. You haven't caught any fish, have you? His shouted question just rubs salt into the wound. But maybe out of their frustration, maybe out of his cheek, they do as he tells them. They've worked this lake all their lives. They know where the fish are to be found. But perhaps hoping only to prove him wrong, they do what he says. They lower the net where he tells them on the other side of the boat. And it's a measure of the effect that their catch has on them. That when they finally manage to get it ashore, someone actually counts the fish, all 153 of them. But Peter, hot-headed, impulsive Peter, has already lost interest in the fish. He immediately sees the massive catch for the miraculous sign that it is, and realises who the figure on the shore must be. And for the second time in his life, he jumps out of a boat to go and meet his master. And Peter, more than any of them, has unfinished business. Peter has been the one whom the other disciples looked up to for leadership. Peter was the first to fully recognise Jesus as Messiah. Peter was the one who swore never to desert Jesus. And Peter is the one who has denied him 3 times, just as Jesus told him he would. The joy of the resurrection appearances has yet to soothe the shame, the utter desolation that created within him. But this event is carefully stage managed. As Peter comes ashore, there is the charcoal fire burning. We all know that wonderful scent of hot charcoal. For Peter, it takes him straight back to the courtyard in the high priest's house, to warming himself at the charcoal brazier there, to denying that he ever knew Jesus, to the piercing call of the cock, piercing not just his ears, but his very soul. Peter was the first to recognize Jesus as the Messiah, but he was also the first to try to dissuade him from going to Jerusalem and to Calvary. And this challenge to what Jesus knew must be the climax of his ministry must have taken him straight back to the wilderness, to the temptations that he thought he'd overcome. Get thee behind me, Satan. The rebuke to Peter was stinging. What, Peter must have wondered, was coming now. Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these? 3 times, almost the same question. Simon, son of John, do you love me? Perhaps a rebuke would have been easier to bear. Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you. 3 questions. 3 declarations of love, mirroring the 3 denials. Only the questions weren't quite the same. English is one of the most versatile languages, but in translating the Greek of the New Testament when it speaks of love, I'm afraid English falls short. There are 3 different words for love used in the Greek New Testament. Their meanings are subtly different. Agape, the unconditional love that God has for humans. The love that Paul speaks of in 1 Corinthians 13, which the King James Bible translates as charity. The love that suffers long, that asks no question, that never fails. Then there's eros, physical love, the love of beauty, whether expressed platonically or physically. And philia, brotherly love, love between friends, between equals, love which in the family dwells. Now, the first time that Jesus asks Peter the question, do you love me? The word he uses is agape, unconditional divine love. And Peter replies, you know that I love you, with the word philia, love between friends. The second time is just the same. Only the third time does Jesus use the more familiar philia, echoing the 2 previous responses from Peter. Now, I'm not sure, and theologians do not agree, what the significance of this is. But I think that Peter may be saying, consciously or unconsciously, Lord, I'm not worthy, not capable of the unconditional love that God has for me. And Jesus, by subtly changing the question, is saying, that's all right. If you'll be my friend, I'll be yours. I'll always be with you. I'll help you to do what I ask of you. Tend my sheep. Spread the gospel. It will ultimately cost you your life. But I will be there with you always. I think that's why Jesus came to us as a human, so as not to ask of us something which was beyond us, but to be our friend, if we will be his, to walk with us, if we, like Peter, will follow him. Amen.